Well, Mike, we'll keep this one simple. We're on DNs. We're at number two. Me and you both appreciate the front seven on defense, so I'm excited to get into this one. But today we got Gregory Rousseau. So how you doing?
Gregory Gregory Rousseau. I'm doing well. Um, he's an interesting prospect. We'll just hop right into it because a year ago, this time last year, he was kind of considered the heir apparent to edge one, right? Everybody was saying this man's going to be a top five, top three pick in this year's NFL draft, and then lo and behold, with the pandemic, he opts out. We see some other edge players rise, and then next thing you know, a lot of people are not big fans of him anymore. And I feel like we both kind of see why on film because he is a raw guy. But at the same time, a lot of that can be explained by the fact that he's only played 14 games at the DN position. That's something that we talked about earlier. He was a wide receiver and I believe a safety in high school. So he comes to Miami, becomes a DN, and puts up 15 and a half sacks. So I'm like, do you think that this limited sample size, obviously it's a question mark, but do you think that people are looking at this a little bit too negative compared to how they should be when, hey, his first real year, he played this well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like that's definitely that's nice to see, and especially if you're going to be drafting him. Kind of, I was talking about Quiddy Pay has probably the highest floor. Russo probably has the highest ceiling, and there's still a lot for him to learn. So it's not even a matter of him knowing like it was a totally new position for him coming into college, and it took him 2 years to be super productive. And we'll get more into the film and actually what we saw and where that production might have come from, but coming from a safety to some games, he was lined up as nose tackle a good chunk of it. That's an adjustment, a big adjustment to say the least. And I don't think he looked half that bad. And I think the stats show it, especially in that 1 year, 15 and a half sacks. I wouldn't complain.
No, not at all. And as you were saying, playing defensive tackle. I mean, in that Central Michigan game that I watched, this man was probably lined up as a nose or a one tech 75-80% of the snaps. So it's not even like he learned just one new position. He came in and went instantly down to D tackle and then got pushed out to DN. So it really is something completely new to him, completely foreign. And I think that he was starting to grasp it pretty well. The only question is now is over this year that he's taken off, which direction has he went, right? Has he used this year to become even more acclimated to the position? Is he going to be in better physical shape? That's going to be tough with a guy like Rousseau, 6'7", 265. But, is he going to be better equipped to be an NFL DN now than he would have been had he played? I guess that's the real question because, we talked about it in the Kenneth Gainwell video. With these opt-outs, they could trend in either direction. You don't know. Were they just sitting on their couch this past year, or were they actually specialized in their skills? And, it just sucks with a guy like Rousseau, who I think really could have used another 10 games under his belt. But I guess we'll have to wait and see because we don't know that answer, unfortunately, until you draft him, which is obviously the inherent risk. So with that being said, though, hopping into my grade of him, as you can see, I would say he's generally positive in all of these areas, just maybe not as positive as we've seen on, say, Quiddy Pay in our previous video. If you haven't seen that, click the link above our heads. I thought that his explosiveness and quickness, his first step was pretty inconsistent. That's why I gave him a 12.5. I think that that's something that maybe you can get better at with time, though. I know, when you're lined up as a 5 tech, just getting a sense of seeing the ball out of the corner of your eye and knowing when it's snapped, that can kind of be something that takes some time to get used to. I wouldn't be shocked if he, in a couple of years looks more like a 14.5 in that area. He really surprised me, though, with his ability to set the edge and anchor. I know Mike might think this is a little bit too high of a grade, but man, his just ability to shoot his hands and use those long arms to keep defenders at bay, I feel like he did really good there. The problem is he wouldn't do much with it after that in terms of, shedding the block and making plays from there. But I did think he did a good job in terms of just the initial stab and then sort of bench press guys off of him. Otherwise, hand usage, I think he's pretty raw. You don't see a lot of pass rush moves, but again, as we talked about with Quiddy, I think that's something you can work on. So just sort of working with that top half, Mike, what do you think about those grades in various areas of his game?
No, I agree. Yeah, probably the ability to set edge is a little bit high, but I agree with you that it was actually impressive, especially saying where he came from. It's not something I was really expecting to see, and you definitely, and I definitely did see it. Hand usage wasn't great, but that's something, being new to the position. I think it could be, come in time. Um, under the right coaching. And I'd agree with you. Explosive quickness, was kind of underwhelming, and I was kind of surprised. You thought that might be something he excels at. That and as well as flexibility bend. I don't know. I just thought he'd be for his size. I thought on tape he'd look like a better athlete. He wasn't consistent. He did look like a really nice athlete at times, but um, a lot of the times it's almost like it was like, learning how to drive stick shift. Like he started in third gear, went down to first, and then he'd go into fourth. He had no clue what he's doing. And in certain plays, that's kind of what it looked like. It just wasn't very consistent. So, no, I agree with a lot of the grades here.
No, I agree with that. When you sort of just look at him, you would think that he's going to be this explosive guy, fast twitch guy off the edge that, he can bend the edge like no other. And then you kind of put the film on, and it's almost the exact opposite. It's more of he's maybe not as explosive, but hey, look at him against the run. I thought he was going to get eaten up. When you kind of look at his frame, he's more of a lankier guy, a taller, more lanky guy, and he really didn't, in my opinion. It was just sort of the opposite of what I expected, but I'll say, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised considering a lot of what I've heard. I know people seeing that raw grade might not think that, oh, hey, you saying he's an early third rounder, that might sound like I'm lower on him than others, and maybe I am. There might be people who have him in the top 10, but you have to account for the position that he plays in that grade. I know we talked about it in the Quiddy Pay video. Probably gonna have to keep talking about it, but considering he is a defensive end, a premium position pass rusher, I would probably add 4 or 5 points to that grade, and he would probably be in that 78, 79 range if we were actually ranking and comparing positions. Because you're going to see here that his grade is just 0.25 higher than, say, Najee Harris, that raw grade. I would take him almost a whole round ahead of Najee Harris, and I'm sure Mike would agree with that. But at the same time, I don't really know if I would take him in the top 15, top 20. I think we're pushing it at the end of the first round, in my opinion. Do you agree with that, Mike?
Absolutely. End of the first round would be the earliest I can, and I still think it might be a little bit of a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, if you need you're a playoff team, you have a little bit more options and that availability to stretch. And if you have a pretty decent D line, kind of like the Saints did, they had to trade up to get a player. But like Marcus Davenport, um, they definitely overdrafted him. But what they saw they needed on their team, they already had a really nice, you know, D end on the other side, some nice D tackles. They just felt like they needed one more piece to kind of be, just take on single teams and win. And they drafted Marcus Davenport. So a team, late in the first round in a similar situation, I wouldn't be mad to see that him drafted there at all. But no, I agree. Probably my raw grade would be it'd probably be toward the end of the second, and then once you add in that position value, probably mid to early second.
Yeah, no, I think we're definitely in agreement there. I like the Marcus Davenport comp. I would say he probably has more physical gifts than a guy like Davenport, but similarly, Davenport was raw coming out, and then if you can put him maybe where he's not a premium pass rusher on your team immediately, I think that's what helped Davenport out so much is that, hey, you have Cam Jordan taking on double teams. You have Sheldon Rankins on the middle eating up blocks, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a team that has a bad D line and try and take Gregory Rousseau and act like he's going to be Myles Garrett day one, it's just not going to happen. And I think that Mike and I are definitely in agreement with that. So kind of transitioning into now our comparison between him and Quiddy Pay. Obviously, these are all the grades that you've seen that you just saw on the previous slide as well as in the Pay video. Mike, I think we're in agreement, but you agree that he is just slightly, or not even slightly, I will say there's a pretty decent gap though between him and Pay, right?
Yeah, I'd agree. There's a gap, and for me, just in this, um, when you're picking in the first, in that first early second, like I'd like that floor. I like the floor Pay offers. I think there is productivity there, and I think you can get something come day one. Russo, there's question mark. It's going to be a learning process, especially coming a year off. Still, but fairly new to the position, coming into the NFL. Like that's just a large learning curve, and that sounds like that's a year or two with low production. And I'm not saying wasted; it's needed, and you could come year 2 or even year 3, well, hopefully year 3, we're seeing, a lot more productivity. But um, when you draft him, you basically got to give him a redshirt year, which I think is a concern. I don't know. So no, I definitely take Quiddy Pay over him, and I think it's pretty sizable.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of everybody wants to have their guys produce immediately, right? Well, you look at say a Reek Armstead, who Mike and I we weren't super high on him coming out. We knew that he was incredibly raw. He struggles for what was it 4 years, and then he ends up breaking out with a double digit sack season. I wouldn't be shocked if we kind of saw that career trajectory from a guy like Rousseau, where it's slower at the beginning. He's got to get acclimated to the position, maybe put some weight on, and then kind of find a spot for himself on your D line, because as we said, half his time he's been playing on the interior. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe a team wanted to take him as an interior guy, but bulked him up a little bit more just to utilize that size maybe to its fullest extent. Or hey, maybe you keep him on the edge and just try and really work on that explosiveness and bend and get him from there. But no, I think that he's an interesting prospect. I don't hate him by any means. I know a lot of people online that I've seen are really down on Rousseau, and I guess I can see why they might be, because the question marks are there. But I think that he certainly is an intriguing guy that I'll be interested to see where he goes come the draft here.
Me too. And if you guys are interested to see where this channel goes, you should probably leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. We like talking. If you think Rousseau, if you're on the hating bandwagon, let us know why. If you're on the actual bandwagon, let us know why. Like to have discussions. If what's your thoughts on Rousseau versus Quiddy Pay, and we're going to get into another Miami DN coming up here. So look out for that video. But yeah, we enjoyed doing this, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. So anything with that, Mike?
No, I say just be on the lookout for Jalen Phillips' video. He came in, he took Rousseau's position, took his number, and we're gonna take him for a scouting report next video. So with that being said, no, I think we're mic'd up, and now we're micing out. Peace, guys.
Deuces.